Hey, thank you, say Ukino.
I have a question. What is the truth? And what defines the truth? And what if your truth and my truth are not the truth? Have we ever questioned if Nelson Chamisa, when he says God is in it, is it the truth or his truth? Or at least, is it God's truth? How about the quote that says the voice of the people is the voice of God? Is it the truth or his truth? You see, politicians lie. Actually, we all do, to push our certain narratives. And dictators thrive on the idea of shifting blame to sustain and maintain their power. And what do? They lie. Stalin became a dictator because he was blaming the farmers, the scientists, and religion for the country's economic woes. Hitler blamed the Jews. Idi Amin blamed Asians. And we have people who blame sanctions in Zimbabwe. I'm not going to lie. Indeed, they're there and they affect the general and normal people. So today I made an effort to look into three things. The first thing is Idi's UN General Assembly speech and the trending story of Chivayo giving a lot of vehicles around to show solidarity with the die-hard supporters and fans of the president. And also we have the third part of the story, which is Thokozani Khupe's cancer treatment that has been offered by the president. So if you're new to this channel, please just comment, like, and subscribe as well. Now let's start with the president.
We value the role he played to promote science in our overarching goal to improve the lives and livelihoods of all. Mr. President, it is imperative that we recommit to the Charter of the United Nations, multilateralism, solidarity, justice, and the peaceful settlement of disputes.
So the president is putting emphasis on recommitting to the UN Charter and multilateralism, solidarity, justice, and peaceful settlement for sustainable development. I will remind His Excellency, when you get into any election, Mr. President, any election, your goal is to never lead disgruntled people, never lead people who are bitter, never lead people who are not in sync with your vision. Not even Chamisa himself can do it. You cannot ever run through the will of the people and still think you can make it. I understand that you talk about justice, but the question is, how far have you committed justice to the August 1st victim? The inquiries came, no solid response came. And how about the issue of scrutinizing selective justice that is befalling anyone who goes against your government? Job Sikala is in prison. Jacob Ngarivume is in prison. There's no justice in Zimbabwe. The courts are captured, and sadly people are watching you and your family lead while you know you're not telling the truth. Next.
For sustainable development and a shared future. This calls on us all to respect the sovereign equality of nations, big or small, poor or rich. By working together, we can harness our expertise and learn from one another to strengthen international institutions for the accelerated attainment of Agenda 2030.
Learning from one another, Your Excellency. Yeah, I agree. But you didn't need to go all the way to New York to learn from Americans and British people when your neighbor, His Excellency Hakainde Hichilema, is asking you to be an honorable man. Look here, Mr. President. He just came back from China. If you should know, his country is the second largest exporter of African minerals to China. He was intending to diversify trade patterns, especially value addition and manufacturing. This man is next level. He is trying to booster his country's economy. He's trying to have sustainable growth and sustainable development that you're talking about, Mr. President. Mr. President, do you know why the presidents like HH are finding time to be growing the economy? It's because when they are leading, they're at peace and not over allocating resources to security arms or the security sector because you're afraid of being toppled, you're afraid of who to trust and not to trust. So they're not afraid of losing power. Hence, they find more time to deal with developmental ideas. I think this is the problem with African leaders, especially our countries, because instead of putting more resources in bread and butter issues, or if I am correct, when I was in school, I heard that we have macroeconomics of bread and butter and macroeconomics of button sticks and guns. And because of your source of power, you make a decision based on those things. Most peaceful leaders are the most successful. Anyway, next.
We have a duty to reignite our commitment to the principles of the 2030 Agenda and rekindle the spirit of multilateralism. To accelerate our action on the SDGs, we must scale up investments in people and communities by ensuring access to quality education, healthcare, clean water, and sanitation for all. The creation of economic opportunities, decent jobs, and entrepreneurship, especially among women and youth, must remain a priority. Excellencies, Zimbabwe continues to entrench democracy, constitutionalism, good governance, and rule of law following the recently held 2023 harmonized general election.
Zimbabwe continues to entrench democracy, constitutionalism, and good governance. And he said rule of law, right? Rule of law. So the question is, who writes the speech of the president? Anyway, I won't say much.
I am pleased to highlight that our country enjoyed the peace before, during, and after our free, fair, transparent, and credible elections.
Free, fair, and credible. Mr. President, what's fair? What's free? If the elections were free and fair, should we be having these problems? Okay, fine. Let's assume the opposition is just lying, but a lot of evidence that suggests that there was enough rigging on the ground, Mr. President. The world knows. And these people are not idiots. When they look at you, Mr. President, they know the truth. That is why these holes are empty. Because the bad leadership or political leadership attracts bad investment or no investment at all.
Zimbabwe has been under the illegal unilateral economic sanctions for 23 years, imposed by some Western countries. These sanctions were designed to subjugate the sovereign will of the Zimbabwean people.
Are you saying that the president doesn't look so confident about the words coming from his mouth? I think the person who did this speech is the one who literally put him on a stand, because the president can't even believe the words that are coming out of his mouth to say Zimbabwe is free and it's growing. Things are just in the open.
We therefore demand that the unjustified unilateral sanctions be unconditionally lifted, including those imposed on countries like Cuba. We remain grateful for the support and solidarity of progressive countries in the Committee of Nations. In spite of these debilitating sanctions, the people of Zimbabwe have become masters of their destiny.
Something that I finally agree with, Mr. President. The people have become masters of their own destinies. Actually, I'm 100% behind you, Mr. President. You speak well. That's why during your tenure, the UK government has received approximately 17,000 of your youth. And we cannot talk about those going to the cruise ships and South Africa. That is due to sanctions, right? The Western sanctions and also ZANU PF sanctions that they were given by the government. I don't know if you get where I'm coming from, but Mr. President, most of these people are sanctioned by poor governance. They're sanctioned by inability to admit the results or the outcome of elections, which then makes us go back to this point where we question, are we leading ourselves or are we controlling our own destinies? Because the leaders are not controlling any destiny at all. There is no involvement of people. It's just people who are leading on their own. So definitely it's tricky. Next.
We are recording unprecedented development and economic success milestones. For the last 3 years, our country has been the fastest growing economy in our Southern Africa region. Further, Zimbabwe is prioritizing the eradication of poverty and improving the quality of life of our people, particularly those in rural areas.
I don't know if this makes sense, but if the same man who lured rural people using chicken and water during his rally is the same man who is coming on world stage talking about eradication of poverty, I don't know, because definitely if a country is eradicating poverty, there is a better way of luring people or to attract people to come to your rallies. For example, I would rather give houses. That's one level of showing that you have simply eradicated poverty. Or maybe you can talk about maybe giving tractors, because definitely people have land and they're doing some sort of commercial farming. I don't know, it's just my thinking. And actually this whole thing of poverty eradication has always been a clause used by ZANU PF manifestos and policy documents, and we still fall back into the same predicament of nerve-wracking poverty. I don't understand, Mr. President. Please make us understand.
With effect from this year, our country will become a net exporter of wheat. Zimbabwe has not been spared from the negative impact of climate change. Hence, my government continues to make the requisite investment in infrastructure to mitigate and build resilience towards climate change adaptation. Dams are being built across the country.
I gotta admit, on dams, I'll say yes. He has been working hard on dams. Actually, that is something I can really say. Well done, Mr. President. The roads and the dams, yeah. Infrastructural development, to be honest. One day I was at the airport and I was like, wow, the state of the art, that's good. Bed bridge, that's good. I don't know about the quality of the roads though, but they might become a bit worrisome. But on dams and roads, wow, we have to commend you when you do well.
In addition, we have begun an ambitious and yet achievable program to sink solar-powered balls in each of our country's 35,000 rural villages and schools.
This issue of talking about boreholes, I don't think it's only rural related, because even in cities, service delivery is a disaster. Now, even towns and cities are drilling boreholes to ensure that they get access to water, which is a simple right. You know, I don't know why the president would go on a world stage to talk about a simple right that a person has to have. It's like going on world stage to say, oh, my people are living. Actually, I want you to understand that the people are alive in Zimbabwe. So you should commend me because the people are alive. Mr. President, access to water is a basic right. It's not part of a manifesto. It's not part of development. It's a basic human right, Mr. President. Anyway, I don't think I have the time to continue with this speech. So, Mr. President, we have an obligation to the people, telling the truth instead of your truth. And we are in a turmoil because we're failing to do one thing: to admit that the country doesn't belong to a few, but everyone has the right. That kid who is deep in rural Mutoko or Mashingo, if they don't cross the Limpopo or become a fake gold buyer to you, they are doomed. Their lives are at stake, Mr. President. Think of those who are in abject poverty. Think of those who don't have. Think of those who are suffering, Mr. President. I hope this message reaches you. So I saw this trending picture of ZANU PF singers and supporters getting cars and tokens of appreciation for being able to stand with the party. Fair enough actually. It's personal money. That's Wicknell Chivayo's money. But I also want to take note of how people are ridiculing Koksman for his failure to get anything from the opposition. Well, this is where the problem is. When these people receive these gifts, they're given because they sing ED is the best, or they say ED Huchi, right? Is honey. But the best in what? Because we need to ask ourselves a question. ED is not a pastor, so he is not a preacher. He should be the president, right? So it means his job is to govern. His job is to lead. So if it means he's leading, we have to get into details. So if he's that good, why can they just go and work and buy these vehicles for themselves without being given as tokens? Why do you need a rich man to give you a car? Do you get me? Like, am I making sense? This is a clear example of what they call tokenism. You want to impress people with the grandiose and grandstanding, to appear as the saint of the poor, to show some kind of appreciation when you clearly show that you are taking more than you are giving. Still, I don't understand people who jump when they're given GD6s. How are you going to fuel it with the rates of fuel that are spiking? My mentor used to tell me, and he used to say, your ability to buy the same asset on your own is a reassurance of your financial status. This simply means that if you're given a car and you are unable to buy it, then you're not empowered. You're just given an expense. So if you don't get that, I don't know how I'm going to help you. So Cooksman, my brother, you're fighting a greater fight that will lead everyone getting what they want at the end of the day. And besides what you can get as one man, you're going to make sure that all these people who are suffering in deep rural areas and in these urban, a kid that is suffering from drugs because he cannot be alive, Cooksman, you're singing to make them know that one day Zimbabwe shall be free. Wicknell has to understand that giving people cars is not empowerment. Rather, he should have given them something that produces more, a community where they come from, something that is sustainable. But to give a GD6 car, that's not sustainable development. Anyway, enough of this. So the president has decided to take Thokozani Khupe for a cancer treatment in India. It's a very noble idea. I think it's something I applaud. But the idea of fiscal policies are that we have innovation-friendly education to boost our education systems, to set our country in a certain direction. The country is supposed to invest in knowledge and education policies so that in 10 to 20 years, we have the best doctors, we have the best healthcare system, we have the best physicians. So this is a clear indication that for 43 years, Mr. President, you've been in the government. Today, a fellow politician has become sick. You've taken them to India. The biggest question is, how about that mother who needs chemotherapy? How about that father who needs a basic cancer treatment? Are they supposed to be noticed by your corridors of power so that you can give them what they deserve? Have you ever heard of the saying that says politicians create a problem so that they can fix it, so that they receive praises? Having Khupe receiving treatment and then we applaud, that's one of the signs that show that we treat a right as a privilege. Until next time, guys, please don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Till next time, much love.